I show 10:03 on my clock, so we will go ahead and get started. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We appreciate you taking the time out of your day to learn about our program. I will start off by introducing myself. My name is Adrienne Yearday, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Associate Director of the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission. Hopefully I can get, there we go. So in terms of what we're hoping to do today, we're going to start off by introducing the program, introducing the commission, and then we're going to talk through what types of sites or individuals can be featured on the trail, who is able to apply for the trail, what the markers themselves look like, how the markers will be placed, and then we'll talk through the application process, where the application is located, what kind of materials do you need to compile together in order to submit a successful application, and what responsibilities we see for the applicants. Additionally, we will talk through what the application review process looks like, including our advisory committee, and then what the steps are following applying for the program. We'll also take a few moments to talk through other upcoming informational webinars that we will be hosting, as well as some open office hours that any of you all are more than welcome to attend. And then we'll have plenty of time at the end for your questions. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to leave them in the chat, and then we will make time to answer them towards the end. So to begin, I will start off by introducing the North Carolina African American Heritage Commission to you all. For those who might not be familiar, we are the smallest division within the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. We have a full-time staff of 3, as well as a number of contractors who join us throughout the year. And we serve with a mission to preserve, protect, and promote North Carolina's African American history, arts, and culture for all people. And this really manifests itself in a number of different ways. We have a number of initiatives that you may or may not have heard of, including Freedom Roads. We also have the North Carolina Green Book Project, Oasis Spaces, that includes a traveling exhibit that is currently making its way across the state, as well as our Lock and Cord Project and our Africa Carolina initiative. These are all things, if you are interested, that you can certainly find more information about on our website. But our work also includes what we call technical support assistance with folks within our department, as well as folks who are working with history, arts, and culture across the state. So, you know, certainly as folks are working on projects and exhibits and things like that, we do what we can to support. There we go. And regarding the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, those that joined us a few minutes early heard that it is a rather new initiative for us. It's our newest one. It actually officially launched in August of 2020. And we are really excited to be sharing this program with you all. It was something that we as the commission, as our director and leadership, saw as a real need within North Carolina to recognize these sites. You know as well as I do that North Carolina has a rich and long civil rights history. There are folks from across the state, from our larger cities to our smaller cities, that have their piece of the civil rights story, and we see it as really an important one to tell. And there are many strengths within a historical highway marker program in that it is a way to highlight and show this history, not just to folks who already know it, but also for regular passersby. And we hope that it's a way for them to learn about this history, whether it's something that they're able to carry with them, perhaps research a little more, perhaps prompt something with them. That is certainly one of our hopes. And the way that the program is designed that we saw as significant is that it is not a program where, one person in a community says, I want a marker, I just want to install it right here. Our hope is really to join communities in physically marking these sites, which I hope you will see is reflected in the program and our application process, which we will talk a little bit more about in depth as the webinar continues. But we also see this as an opportunity for us to think a little bit more expansively about the potential for African American heritage trails across North Carolina in order to help shape our state's tourism infrastructure and also to boost local economies. African American heritage tourism is a growing sector, and it is a wonderful way to highlight, again, this rich heritage, this rich history that is already existing in our state. And so you may be wondering, how is this trail possible? Where are we getting support from this? So this work is largely supported by the William G. Pomeroy Foundation. And they are an organization who exists with a mission committed to supporting the celebration and preservation of community history. And they do this through a number of marker programs. This includes the National Women's Suffrage Trail. They also support the state of New York as well as the state of Ohio in their state highway marker programs. In addition to, you may or may not be familiar with, they have a Legends and Lore trail marker program, and that is one that actually has several markers, I believe, in our state currently. So they are the organization behind this work. We are also doing this work in partnership with the North Carolina Office of Archives and History. We have received a wonderful amount of support from Ansley Wegner, who is the lead on the State Historical Highway Marker Project. So we are a separate program from that, but we certainly have a lot of support from them. And as a newer historical marker program, we have much to learn from them and their process. So we have very much appreciated their support along the way. We also have a partnership with Visit North Carolina, and this sees itself through them helping us spread the word. I believe that's how a number of you all were able to connect with us today. CVBs and folks more in the tourism industry, we're really excited to have you here and to have you interested in the program. Also, in terms of our long-term hopes for the program, we'll be working with Visit North Carolina to develop driving tours and travel itineraries. Again, our hope is not that these are, just a one and done marker, that this is really part of a movement to get people out into communities, to learn their history, to, come and stay a while and to experience places that they might not have been able to prior to. So we certainly want to highlight these individual communities. We are currently in phase 1 of the trail program, which will go through 2023. This phase includes a digital map of North Carolina civil rights sites. This map is due to launch this summer, so please stay tuned and take a look at our website once we have that launch available. It will also include 50 physical markers for community-based civil rights sites. And our hope is that at minimum, 10 of these will be located in hometown strong counties. For those not familiar with Hometown Strong, this is a statewide initiative to create partnership in order to address the needs of North Carolina's rural communities. So if you're familiar with hearing things like Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 counties, it's the way that they are economically ranked in the program. And our hope, again, is to not just put markers in big cities. We know about the Greensboro sit-ins. We know about things that have happened in Durham and Charlotte and the bigger places. But we also want to make sure that the smaller communities also have their histories highlighted. That's something that's really important and significant to us. What can be on the trail? What kinds of sites can be marked? So we are hoping to mark protest, rally, and sit-in sites, birthplace, childhood homes, and primary residences of civil rights icons, churches and spaces where people organized, spaces and places where civil rights icons visited, stayed, and spoke, educational institutions, as well as legal institutions and or courthouses. So again, places, events, or persons of statewide or regional significance that are connected to civil rights activities in North Carolina or part of the larger United States civil rights story. These events must have taken place between 1941 and 1976. And when we say historical significance, this means any person, place, or event of the past that has been recorded, documented, or recognized in a primary or secondary source, so things like books, diaries, newspapers, things like that. And we'll talk about that more in detail once we get to the application portion of this webinar today. And when we say, you know, state and or regional historical significance, you know, having it documented in one of these sources helps support it, as well as within the application, we do give the opportunity for applicants to, you know, say why they think that this has significance in their community and within the larger state. We do mention individuals on here. It has been set up that the trail will not mark individuals unless they have been, it's 25 years past their death. That is just something that has been set as a standard. That being said, if you do already have someone in mind that you are hoping to establish a marker for and it is not quite within that time period, there are some ways that that can be worked around to a certain extent, and we do invite you to get in touch with us if you do have any questions about how you're thinking about your application. For example, say an individual, you know, they might still be alive currently, which is wonderful, though they took part in a court case or a specific sit-in that happened, you know, within the timeline that we are discussing, then maybe that specific event or court case could be highlighted rather than the individual themselves. It's certainly something to think about. And again, if you do have any questions about that, please do feel free to reach out to us, or we can certainly talk about it a little bit towards the end of our webinar presentation today. I do also want to provide you a few examples of the markers that are currently on the program. So yes, it is a rather new program, but in March we did announce our first 3 recipients of markers, and that will be New Ahoskie Baptist Church in Ahoskie, North Carolina. This church served as a meeting place where church members really led civil rights efforts in their community. They sought to expand access to public offices, resources, and employment. We also will be marking the Adkin High School walkout in Kinston, North Carolina. And this was a really unique spot in that it was very much student-led. These were students who saw that they had a lack of facilities, that they had a lack of resources in their communities, and they wanted more for themselves. So they you know, planned their own walkouts, and it was largely successful in their community. So certainly a wonderful story for us to depict. And last but not least, we will be installing a marker to mark the Shelby sit-ins in Shelby, North Carolina. This is where a group of Cleveland High School students who are part of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee organized sit-ins at various uptown businesses in their communities. So these are examples of things that you might think about in your own town that could possibly be marked. These specific sites, they have not yet received their trail markers. We're still in the midst of the ordering process, but they should be marked by sometime this summer. That is our hope. In terms of applications, who is able to apply? We have set it as nonprofit groups with a 501c3 designation. Academic institutions and government entities are also eligible to receive a marker. So if you are an individual, our hope is that you need to connect with one of these types of organizations. If you're not quite sure what one of those organizations might be, please reach out to us and we can work on forging that connection. You know, depending on the community, that might look like your local historical museum or historical society, an alumni association, some sort of civic group, as well as obviously individual towns, counties, and, you know, whether that be a, you know, a public school, university, college, something like that, are more than welcome to be partnered with in terms of submitting an application. So this is one of those requirements where if we are not seeing on your application that you do have this connection, unfortunately the application cannot be presented in front of our advisory committee. You know, please connect with us if this is a sticking point for you. We want to make sure that folks have a successful application. That's really one of our goals of the program. Another thing to note is that applicants or sites who already have a state historical highway marker are ineligible for our North Carolina Civil Rights Trail program. But that being said, we do recognize that there are places, including what is pictured here, the Hyde County School, that they might already have a state highway marker program. They already have received that honor, which is wonderful. And we don't want to, lessen that honor. So our goal is that these sites that already have them will be recognized as part of our North Carolina Civil Rights Trail digital map. And they could perhaps be included in future travel itineraries and items like that. So they're still almost grandfathered into the Civil Rights Trail. They just will not be receiving a Civil Rights Trail specific marker in addition to the marker that they already have. So what do these markers look like? As I mentioned, we're in the midst of the production process for our first set of markers. So hopefully we will have an updated image for you all soon. But they will look rather similar to the photo that you see on the right in the purple color scheme. That's for the National Votes for Women Trail. Ours, it will be a similar kind of shape and dimension. However, it will be in the colors that you see reflected on the left within our North Carolina Civil Rights Trail color scheme. The markers themselves will be 18 inches by 32 inches cast aluminum on a 7-foot aluminum pole. Each marker's title line will allow for 15 characters. The body lines can have 27 characters each, including spaces and punctuation. And again, each will be within the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail color scheme. I will be very honest with you. There is such thing as what we call marker speak. It is a very specific way of writing that is a little bit different than we are accustomed to. And you can kind of see that reflected in the National Votes for Women example here. Certain abbreviations are used. It is important to think about spacing and what that might look like, because certain letters might look like words are running together. And that is something that we as the commission, as well as our advisory committee, spend quite a lot of time on kind of working through what will look best and what best represents the stories that you are hoping to share. I will say that on our application, if you haven't had a chance to look at it yet, we do ask that you submit some proposed marker text. It's not a requirement on the application because we do understand that, the word count and the spacing is a little bit tricky to work through, but it is helpful for us on the back end to see what your hopes for a marker are so that we can, accommodate that and do our best to fit in the text appropriately. But because it's not a requirement on the application, it's not something, if you don't include it, it's not something that will be docked against you, but it does certainly help us on the back end in terms of this process. So how will these markers be placed? Well, one of the requirements of the application is that applicants submit a letter from the landowner granting permission for the marker to be installed, and that, again, must be part of the application package. If it is unclear to us whether or not a site has been confirmed, we will not be able to move your application along to the advisory committee. That's something that needs to be confirmed rather early on in the application package. Also, please do note that marker recipients are responsible for arranging marker placement with landowner and or municipal officials if necessary. So this does vary from town to town. If it's somewhere outside of a city designation, it varies some. And what we recommend is getting in touch with your roads maintenance department in your area. And if you're having difficulty identifying who that might be, again, reach out and let us know. We want to serve as a resource to you all as you are putting together your application. And we want to make sure that we are working to make these connections. And in terms of actual physical marker placement, that is something else that folks are responsible for doing in terms of installing the marker. Now, in some places, if you're working with your town, city, entity, whatever, a lot of times they will be able to install that for you. I know, for example, the city of Shelby, they were a partner on their application and they are taking care of that process. However, we've also known that, local Boy Scout troops or civic organizations, basically anyone who is able to use a post hole digger can certainly be able to install one of these types of markers. It's a really fairly straightforward process. Another thing to note is that markers cannot be installed within the state right-of-way. That has been set up by the DOT as one restriction that we have in terms of placement. So how do you apply? Well, we have our applications available on our website, which you can see depicted here, though I will certainly share it in the chat as we get towards the end of our presentation. We have it in a PDF, which you're welcome to fill out, or if it's easier for you to print and kind of scan in your application, that's certainly a possibility as well. And in terms of the types of materials that we are requesting for your application, I have those listed here. We have primary sources. So these are things like letters, deeds, newspaper articles, meeting minutes, really items that were written at the time period that the event occurred. Things like oral histories can be included as well, though it is easier when the oral history is done as more of a formal project, and if like the individuals being interviewed are identified, that makes them, it makes it a better resource for us to review. As well as secondary sources. So these are published scholarly articles, books, things that use the primary sources as a resource. And we ask that folks can include photocopies and scans of these types of materials as part of their application so that the advisory committee might be able to take a look through them. We also ask that these sources are listed in a bibliography. Now, we don't have to worry about getting real fancy with the formatting, you know, MLA, Chicago style. We don't really care too much about that. It is just convenient for us to have a listing of your primary and secondary resources. We also ask that folks include a historical essay as part of their application. And it's not that long of an essay. It doesn't have to be, you know, a million pages long. It's really just an opportunity for us to hear directly from you about what you see as significant about this, you know, individual or event, why you feel it has historical significance and deserves to have a marker. It's really a wonderful way for us to hear directly from you about, you know, community significance, and really just tell us more. Tell us about why it matters. Again, as we stated previously, it must be clear what your affiliation with a nonprofit, academic institution, or government entity is. If you can also include a letter of support, you know, showing that there is a relationship there, that is really helpful to us. We also ask for you to include the letter from the landowner and municipal officials granting permission. And within this letter, it needs to specify, you know, an exact location or an exact address, not just that they support the project, but we support it and we support it in this specific location. That is really important to denote. We also, as I mentioned on previous slides, that proposed marker text, again, not an absolute requirement, but again, important for us to see, okay, what are you thinking this marker could look like and what it could say? It's important for us to hear from you. We do on our website have examples of what strong marker applications look like. So if you are at a point where you're wondering, oh gosh, how do I pull this together? What does this look like? Take a look at our website. We have that available to you. And again, I can share the website link as we get towards the close of the webinar. And again, just to highlight, if materials are missing, we can't present applications in front of the advisory committee. So I do recommend, rather than waiting until the last minute, I know it's a lot of material to get together, if you submit your application several days, several weeks, or months prior to, then our trail coordinator has the opportunity to look through and make sure that you have each part of your application. And if you don't, at that point in time, there's plenty of time for our coordinator to work with you to get the remaining items. And this is not something that's counted against you on the application. It's not like the advisory committee will know. It's just, you know, giving you more opportunity to be successful. And I will say for this application cycle, I believe we've already received a couple of applications. So folks are getting theirs together. Looks like there's some excitement, and we await your application as well. In terms of submitting your application, we have two ways of doing this. This can be through our email address, which is ncivilrightstrail@ncdcr.gov. If you are emailing your application, we do just ask that rather than including all of the materials as attachments, if you could instead include them as either a Google Drive or a Dropbox or a similar service. That just makes it easier for us on the back end to organize them appropriately for the advisory committee. You are also more than welcome to submit them via paper mail, USPS, to our address that I have listed here, which is also available on our website. We do ask, in that case, we will be scanning your application, so please use paper clips rather than staples. It certainly helps our process. As well, if you are mailing your application, we will be accepting applications that are postmarked by the application deadline. So we recognize that there's would be a little bit of remaining time for us to be checking our mailbox on that, and that's totally acceptable, but you know, no later than the application deadline. And I keep mentioning throughout, if you have questions, if you need support, reach out to us. And I mean that. So I have our email address here, again, nccivilrightstrail@ncdcr.gov. I will also have this again on our closing slide to make that accessible for you. Currently, we are in the midst of a transition with our Civil Rights Trail coordinator, and we will have a new individual starting with us in June. And she will be the primary support on this application process. But in the interim, reach out to us. We will be still keeping an eye on this email address and making sure that your answers are addressed appropriately. Now, to talk through, as you're thinking through this process and whether or not applying for a trail is a good fit for you, I do want to call out that this program does cover fabrication and shipping. This is shipped in a shipping crate. It's not just in a cardboard box. It's a rather heavy item to have sent. And typically we do ask for a business to have it sent to, but if you are it is announced that you are a recipient of one of the markers, we will talk through more detail of that process. In terms of installation, maintenance, and replacement, those items are all the responsibility of the applicants. That is not something that we were able to facilitate through the trail at this time. Again, as I mentioned previously, but I'll tell you one more time, the letter from the landowner granting permission is significant, as well as that marker placement again. All right. So I also keep making mention of this advisory committee. Who are they? Where are they? What are they? Well, in putting together the North Carolina Civil Rights Trail, we felt that it was really important to assemble an experienced group of committee members in order to review marker applications. So while we at the commission may lay eyes on your application during the process, it's not up to us of whether or not it will receive a marker. It is up to the advisory committee. So these advisory committee members, they are civil rights content experts. They are from across the state, from diverse backgrounds, representing HBCUs, public and private universities, as well as we do have a couple of folks who are in the public history, work in museums. We have the Levine Museum of the New South, as well as the Museum of the Southeast American Indian represented here. And we were able to host our first advisory committee with these folks in January of this year, and they are very enthusiastic and excited to review applications. You know, being content experts, this is a really exciting way for them to participate and see this history really make an impact on communities. So I want to, emphasize their interest and their care in the program. And again, I mentioned our support from Ansley Wagner, who's with the North Carolina Historical Highway Marker Program. She is a part of our advisory committee as well. So we also have someone who is an expert in historical highway markers in that whole process. So in terms of submission and notification, we are currently in round 2 of our cycle periods. This period began in March and will run through October 31st of 2021, with the goal that applicants will be notified by November 2021 on whether or not their application has been accepted. We will be awarding a maximum of 20 markers during this round of the program. But I will say, if your application for whatever reason does not result in a marker award, we are inviting folks to reapply to the program up to 1 time. And if this, for whatever reason, this current cycle is not a good fit for your timing and for you pulling together application materials, we will have our next cycle of the program beginning in February of 2022 and running through August of 2022. So this is not the last cycle. We have continuing rounds of the program upcoming. And for those wondering what comes after this application cycle, again, this current round will be notified in November of 2021. And we do encourage reapplications if you don't receive one for whatever reason. But at this time period, if folks are accepted, our team will work with you to finalize the text for your marker and to arrange its delivery to you. Again, installation and that aspect will be the responsibility of applicants. And I will say we are more than happy to offer guidance around creating a marker dedication ceremony. We're at a little bit of a different time period in the pandemic, but I will say that we have seen some folks put together really beautiful virtual ceremonies, live streaming them on Facebook or YouTube or something like that. And our hope is to, at some point, be able to also have, a beautiful marker cover where you can, pull it off and have that moment where folks who might be significant to this event, town officials, folks like that, it could be a wonderful opportunity to bring folks together, whether in person or virtually. Again, costs associated with the physical marker and shipping are covered by the program. And finally, once it has been awarded, individual sites will then be added to our North Carolina Civil Rights Trail digital map. And again, that map will be launching shortly this summer, and we'll be excited to share that information with you when it is time. In terms of upcoming webinars, office hours, other opportunities to ask us questions, again, we do have that email address, which I will have listed again on our next slide, available to you. Today's session has been recorded, so we will make that a recording available to on our YouTube, our website, as well as send it out to folks who are registered for today. We do also have a couple of upcoming webinars. So say there are folks in your community who you think would be, who have value out of attending one of these lab webinars. We will have another one on June 10th from noon to 1 p.m., as well as July 8th from 6 to 7 p.m. We recognize that 10 a.m. on a weekday does not work for everyone, so we certainly wanted to make additional times available to folks. I do also want to specifically call out that something new that we are trying for the program is having open office hours available to you all. We see this as an opportunity for one-on-one conversations, talking through the application process, talking through what your individual needs or your individual thoughts about a potential application might be. Our first cycle of these office hours will be May 17th through May 21st from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., as well as then we will have continuing ones June 14th through 18th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., and then July 12th through 16th from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. When we say open office hours, by appointment only, and then we can discuss whether, and appointments can be made on our website, and I can share that link with you shortly as well. We can have this office hours available through phone, through Zoom, really whatever works best for you. We want to make sure that that is accessible to you all. And say you aren't available at any of these times, that's all right too. Please email us and let us know so that we may get in touch with you and that we may make sure that your questions are addressed. Again, I want to stress to you that our hope, our goal is for folks to have successful applications. So we want to support you through that process. We want to walk you through and make sure that you have resources accessible to you in order to make that possible. So now we will transition to our question and answer portion. I recognize that I've had quite a few things coming in through the chat, so I will pull that up momentarily. Again, I do want to call out that our email address is North Carolina Civil Rights Trail at ncdcr.gov. So please do reach out to us and let us know if you have any questions. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your interest in the program. So I've received a couple of questions here. I'll kind of I'll start at the top and make sure. Lots of folks saying good morning, and thank you. It looks like, will the slides be shared? So as I mentioned, this session has been recorded. If it is really helpful to you, I can certainly, when I send out the recording, I can turn this into a PDF as well so that you can have that information in front of you. All of this information is available on our website as well. I also had our director of the commission called out the hometown strong counties that I mentioned. So in this case, it is Anson, Burke, Caswell, Edgecombe, Graham, Halifax, Lenoir, Madison, Pasquotank, Robeson, and Swain counties. Someone did make a comment as well about the reasoning behind the date range that I mentioned as a requirement for the program. That, you know, it does leave out some civil rights work. This was something that was made in discussion with the within the planning process of this. We recognize that different folks have different definitions of what the civil rights time period is. And one can even make the argument that, you know, events that happen, you know, more recently, 5-10 years ago, also certainly count as civil rights. And we do not deny that, but we did set up a timeline for this particular program. There is possibility for change and flex in the future on that, but at this current time, it was the 1941 to, I believe, 1976 that we have set as their dates. I have, as I mentioned, this is a recorded webinar. We will also have upcoming webinars that I shared previously, so folks are welcome to join us again on that. Oh, also Angela responded regarding that time period that really it was also in consultation with the National Park Service as when they designate as the start of the civil rights movement. And if you do by chance have an event, person, or place that precedes 1941, we're more than welcome to have a discussion about it. Feel free to join us during our office hours or to email us if there is someone specific that you want to mark, and we will we can certainly have a conversation about it. How many applications are we currently considering? So we are hoping to mark up to 20 more sites during this cycle. We have already received a couple of applications. We don't have a limit of how many folks can apply. Really, as many as you would like. We, you know, we will review applications, but again, likely 20 or so markers will be awarded for this cycle. What is the date of the deadline to receive applications? As I mentioned, that will be October 31st, 2021. So we do encourage you to submit them earlier because that certainly gives us more opportunity to go through your applications and help you should you need to get any additional materials gathered together. And we received the question, yes. If your entry does not get accepted within the first round of applications, you can submit the same application with recommended modifications included in the second round. And that being said, if your application is denied by the advisory committee, we do take note of why an application may or may not have been accepted. So if you're wondering, gosh, what can I do to make sure that my application is successful the next time? We let us know and we will give you that information. We'll also let you know, it can be interesting with advisory committees of whether, you know, if something was voted unanimously or if it was a split vote. That can also give you like a, oh gosh, I was just one vote under, I was close. So certainly interesting information to know. Again, with the office hours, that is available by appointment during the time period that I mentioned, and registration for that is available on our website. You can also certainly email us about a time that would be interesting and work best for your schedule. So the Hometown Strong, The Hometown Strong program, thank you, Lori, for sharing information about them in the chat. Again, they're a rural development initiative that is led by our governor, Roy Cooper. So I do invite you to take a look at their website to learn out more information. We do not designate what are or are not Hometown Strong communities. It does have something to do with economic development, and you can learn more information about that on their website. We do also want to call out that markers can absolutely be placed outside of Hometown Strong communities. We certainly invite and encourage that. We just were identifying those specifically because it is important for us that not just large cities, but also smaller towns and communities are recognized within our program. And I just received a question from Connie. Are history museums eligible if they are not solely dedicated to civil rights history, but do include civil rights exhibits and extensive interpretation? Yes, absolutely. Really, it's just about whether or not you have a 501c3 designation. I will call out, for example, our application from folks in Shelby, North Carolina. That was a dual application between the city, the Earl Scruggs Center Museum, as well as their, what do you call that, downtown development group. Civil rights is not a focus that they really have in that museum at all, but they still see the importance of having something like this in their community. So, whether, you might be a Civil War era museum or something like that, you can submit an application to this. Absolutely. We want to encourage applications for folks. And I think that, again, it's another means to highlight what's significant and important in your community. So that, if that includes civil rights history, we encourage it. We encourage, as we think towards the future about travel itineraries and items that I discussed that we will be working on in partnership with Visit North Carolina, that, come and see this marker, come and have lunch at this spot, also stop by this wonderful history museum. Whether or not it has connection to civil rights history, that still can certainly be a more than worthwhile visit for folks who are interested in this. It looks like I am getting towards the end of my questions here. Oh, not a problem. Again, we are here to share information. We are here to try to make sure that folks have successful applications. That is really our goal of this program. I am going to go ahead and stop my screen share here so that I may more easily share you some links and the things that I mentioned. So let's see, I'm gonna make sure that I have this pulled up correctly with you all. Again, thank you so much for joining us and for your interest in the program. Again, it's a relatively new program for us. This is only our second application cycle. So we are grateful for the interest. I am sharing a link right now for our North Carolina Civil Rights Trail. That's the website that has all the information that I discussed through here, as well as information about our upcoming office hours, as well as our upcoming webinars. And I am sharing the link for the office hours registration here as well. So I just made that available in the chat. It does look like we have quite a few more minutes here. So if you have any questions, please let us know. We certainly have enough time to address them. Thank you, Deborah, for joining us. Yes, absolutely. We are here to share information. That is our goal. And I'll take the opportunity to just tell you just a little bit more about the digital map that we are currently working on. As I mentioned, it will be available on our website this summer, and it will feature civil rights sites. It will feature sites that are marked, sites that might already have a state highway marker program. It will also, for those that are on the physical civil rights trail, it will also include historical essays about these sites. So people will be able to visit our website, see that there's a marker, and also learn a little bit more information about it. Because, Well, we love the markers. Obviously, you know, there are different layers to stories that can be added upon in this essay. The essay may be largely based off of what you submit with your application, though we will have our trail coordinator and folks take a look at making sure that there are other stories included within the application. I know, for example, one of our markers, the one for the Adkin High School walkouts, they really an interesting part of their story is that how the students knew when to walk out is that someone made an announcement about an individual misplacing their red purse, and at that moment all the students, you know, walked out. So the historical essay is a moment where those types of stories and that really interesting information can be shared. I just received a question from Rodney. Are we able Are partners within natural and cultural resources eligible to apply, such as North Carolina State Historic Sites? Yes, so that would fall under the category of a government entity. So government entities, whether that be state historic sites, state parks, state museums, are all more than welcome to apply. We certainly encourage that, and we certainly recognize that there are different sites within the state system that have this rich history as well. So we want to partner, and we want to help you with that, making sure that you have a successful application. I also received a question from Jacqueline. If there is a marker up on a civil rights leader, what do they have to do to get them on the civil rights trail? So I'm hopeful that I'm understanding your question correctly. So if there is already a state historical highway marker for an individual civil rights trail leader, they are unfortunately ineligible to apply for a North Carolina civil rights trail marker. We don't want to have two state highway markers for the same individual. That being said, we do recognize that, yes, that would be important civil rights trail history. So it will be included as a component on our digital map that will be featured on our website. I do hope that that answers your question, but please do let me know if it did not.
Do we need to send the information, any information to you all, or you'll automatically be able to find the information?
So we do already have that information. As I mentioned, we work closely with Ansley Wedner, who heads off the North Carolina State Highway Marker Program. So we are working with her to make sure that we have that inclusive list, so that we might include that on the digital map.
It was not a state recognized marker. We found out more information after we got the marker up. It was a private donations. So it's not a state marker.
Okay. So in that case, if it's not a state marker, then you will be eligible to apply for this program.
So we already have the marker up. We just wanted to have it on the civil rights trail if possible.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry for misunderstanding. If it is a private marker, then no, we do not already know about that. And I do invite you to email us so that we can get that information, because we certainly would like to include that as, you know, part of our digital mapping project, so that folks are aware of this site. Again, you can reach out to us. Let me type our email address into the chat. So Jacqueline, yes, if you could let us know about that marker, that would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Just, do folks have any other questions, comments, concerns? Oh, it looks like Angela, our director, just made a comment in the chat that we are hoping to mark a large number of sites this round. So, you know, thank you for joining us to learn more. Take advantage of our office hours. If you have questions like Jacqueline's, or if you have questions about your application, maybe you're having trouble researching and identifying primary sources, we can assist you with that process. We are public historians. We also have connections with libraries and different folks throughout the community, archives that might be able to assist you in that process. So certainly do let us know. I also received a question about, is an African American community organization organized as an expression of civil rights struggle eligible to be recognized with a marker? So yeah, absolutely. So, you know, whether that be an individual, an organization, a place, most definitely they would be eligible. So I think on like a larger scale about like Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, if there was like a certain group in your county that, you know, met at a certain location, they asked what a marker could be put up in their honor. Absolutely. Wonderful. Well, you folks have a lot of questions. Thank you for bringing those with you today. We certainly appreciate it. But again, recognize that this is not your last opportunity to engage with us. Again, we have our office hours available. We are checking our email, which I just recently typed into the chat. And we want to make ourselves available to you. So, you know, please let us know. Please, you know, keep an eye on the deadline for this application cycle. We are several months out, but I will say this research, it can take a moment to pull together, especially those primary sources, depending on where you might have access to them, scanning your newspaper articles and getting that sort of thing together. It can take a little bit of time. So, you know, better to start early is what we would like to encourage. I received another question. What is the deadline for this cycle? So this cycle, the deadline is October 31st, 2021. So get your applications in by the end of October. And again, we will be notifying folks by November of whether or not they have been awarded a marker. And if for whatever reason you are not awarded a marker, we do again invite folks to reapply to the program. Wonderful. Well, folks, it's looking like we're getting towards the end of our time here together this morning. Again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for your interest in the program. We are very much looking forward to receiving your questions, receiving your applications, and getting started in this process with you all. Again, take a look at our website, take a look around. If you have thoughts of folks in your community who also might be able to apply for a marker, encourage them to attend one of our webinars. The more the merrier. We want to spread the word about this program. And we thank you for joining us. I'll leave just a few more minutes here in case any more questions trickle in, but thank you again for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thank you, Connie. Yes, if you could share the webinar link with potential sites, that would be excellent. And yes, Angela just typed her email in the chat. That's ncaahc@ncdcr.gov. But specifically for the Civil Rights Trail, we do invite you to email the Civil Rights Trail address. Right. Well, I think that gave enough opportunity for folks. Again, reach out to us by email if you have any additional questions, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.